Good afternoon. Welcome to the News Roundup for Thursday, September 4, 2025. I'm your host, Bill Thomas. It is the Thursday edition of the program. We've got some urgent stories to share with you today, and here's what's happening right now on the big Roundup. We begin with this: the death toll in Gaza crossing another grim milestone as the war between Israel and Hamas enters an alarming new phase. Chinese President Xi Jinping and North Korea's Kim Jong-un firming up the long-standing ties of their two nations during a pivotal meeting in Beijing, and the GOP clearing the way for President Trump's goal to drill, baby drill, on public lands. Also, the president says he's thinking about deploying the National Guard to another crime-riddled American city, and a legendary country singer, she reveals her favorite fast food joint. All this and more coming up right now on the big Roundup. We have a great deal to get to, and we begin today in the Middle East, where the catastrophic death toll in the Gaza Strip has just crossed an astonishing number, and any potential peace deal between Israel and Hamas seems farther away than ever. According to local health officials in Gaza, more than 64,000 Palestinians have now been killed as a result of the nearly two-year-old war, and the devastating carnage, it shows no signs of letting up anytime soon. Right now, the Israeli military is ramping up their offensive to completely occupy Gaza City, and hospitals in the battered enclave are reporting the most recent Israeli airstrikes have killed at least 28 people, including a significant number of women and children. In the meantime, the terrorist group Hamas, they're now saying that they're open to returning all of the 48 hostages, which they're still holding. However, only 20 of those hostages are believed to still be alive. In exchange, Hamas is asking for a lasting ceasefire, the withdrawal of all Israeli forces from Gaza, the reopening of all borders, and the return of a significant number of Palestinians who are being held in Israeli prisons. Now, for his part, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claims that the latest gesture by Hamas, nothing more than spin, and he now says the war is not going to end until all of the hostages are returned. Hamas is disarmed, and Israel has taken full control of the entire Gaza Strip. President Trump also weighing in. He says that if Hamas immediately releases all 20 of their living hostages, the situation would change rapidly, and the war would soon be over. By the way, the most recent ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas broke down last month, with U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff walking away from the table and blaming Hamas for the lack of progress. Both he and Israel are aiming for a deal in which all of the remaining hostages are returned at the same time. Meanwhile, Israel's offensive to capture Gaza City, the soaring number of civilian casualties, and a dire humanitarian crisis involving extreme hunger, they're all drawing a great deal of condemnation worldwide. And as a result, many countries now threatening to punish Israel while simultaneously calling for the official recognition of a Palestinian state. Final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. The death toll in Gaza, both staggering and sobering, and 100% of the blame for any loss of life related to this war, it lies solely with Hamas terrorists. Now, for those who may have forgotten, it was Hamas who invaded Israel nearly 2 years ago, attacking, murdering, and kidnapping Israeli hostages. Israel has rightfully fought back. They've defended their country and defended it well, and this war will not end until all hostages are returned. Hamas saying that they'll return the hostages with certain conditions, wholly inexcusable, and they've tried similar maneuvers in the past to no avail. Israel will not accept a partial return of hostages on one date, with promises of future hostages released at a later date, and so on. Israel will also not be conned into a hostages for Palestinian prisoners deal, and Hamas is in no position to dictate the time, the manner, or method upon which a ceasefire and peace agreement is hammered out. Here's the deal. Hamas holds no cards in this war, and Israel, under the leadership of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, is clearly in charge. Today, right now, Palestinians are suffering through a humanitarian crisis. The bulk of their region has been destroyed. Civilians are starving, and the only path forward, as Israel has clearly demanded, is for Hamas to return all Israeli hostages. With that, we do bring in producer Davey, working on the other side of town from the home base in Washington, D.C. Davey, I've seen the pictures. It is just devastating. I have friends and family who live in Israel, who thrive in Israel, and that war is just too much. The pictures to me are kind of reminiscent of what we saw during and at the conclusion of World War II. Is it resonating with you as well, pretty deep?
Absolutely, Bill. Those are some very haunting images coming out of the Gaza Strip, and unfortunately, I think they're going to stick with the world for a long time coming.
Absolutely. For now, drop us a note with your thoughts, your comments, your questions, whatever you got on this devastating war. And you'll find us via email at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. With that, Davey, let's go to the email bag right off the top. Who is up first?
Okay, Bill, leading off today, we've got Earl, who's writing to us from Garland, Texas.
Big Earl, welcome to the program. Garland is a beautiful part of Texas country. What are you thinking?
Earl says this war would end immediately if those bloodthirsty Hamas terrorists would release the hostages. Yeah. Instead, they're counting on bleeding hearts worldwide to fall for their disgusting propaganda campaign and recognize a Palestinian launching pad for future attacks.
Absolutely spot on. You're absolutely right. Israel's been very clear about this. This war comes to an end. President Trump has been clear about this as well. Give us our hostages back. President Trump saying, bring us back the 20 hostages who are alive. Israel is saying we want all 58 hostages returned at the same time and right now. That is the launching pad that leads us to the conclusion of this war. That's all it takes. Davey, who's up next? Thank you very much, Big Earl, for checking in.
Okay, Bill, here's one from Myra, who's writing to us today from Dearborn, Michigan.
Afternoon, Myra. What do you think? Tell us what you're feeling about this big war.
Myra says, think about it. 64,000 people are dead. Yeah. Israel killed them, and there's no end in sight. After World War II, the world said never again, but it's happening right before our very eyes, and we're not doing anything about it.
Well, you're half right. Israel perhaps did kill a lot of those people, the Palestinian people. However, it's not their war. Israel was brought into this war. Hamas drew first blood, as it were. They attacked Israel. Israel has done nothing more than attack back. It's Hamas who is hiding within the Palestinian population. When you go after Hamas, sadly, unfortunately, there will be casualties. We all wish there was an easier way around all this, but this is not Israel's war. This is Hamas's war. They started it. Israel is simply going to end it, and they can count on the U.S. To back them up entirely. You know, Israel is a small country. They are prime for attacks. They've been attacked before. They'll most likely be attacked in the future. A small country, but it's abundantly strong. They will always defend themselves. They will never stand down. And, of course, they do have the full backing of the Trump administration. Never attack Israel. Never attack one of our U.S. allies. All right, change things up just a bit now and turn our attention to some unsettling news coming out of Beijing, where following a face-to-face meeting, a pair of our nation's top foreign adversaries are now vowing to further cement the disturbing alliance between their two countries. A lot to take in here. After a prior display of unity at China's recent provocative military parade, both Chinese President Xi Jinping and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un now doubling down by pledging mutual support and cooperation between their two countries. Xi says that his nation's traditional friendship with North Korea is irrefutable, that it will never change no matter what happens on the international stage. Don't count on that. And that it's now time for the two countries to expand their relationship and take the partnership to entirely new heights. Now, for his part, Kim is also praising his country's special relationship with China, which happens to be North Korea's biggest trade partner and provider of critical resources. He agrees that their bonds of friendship cannot be severed by the outside world, and he says that North Korea now ready to increase their interaction with Beijing in every possible way. Now, in recent years, Kim has also been fostering deeper ties with Russia and their President Vladimir Putin. He has sent both troops and ammunition, as you'll recall, to Moscow to back their invasion of Ukraine while receiving military and economic assistance in return. At the same time, North Korea's struggling economy has been suffering under the weight of a number of U.S. economic sanctions, which are tied to that country's nuclear ambitions. Meanwhile, Xi, Kim, and Putin all smiles as they were standing side by side at this week's ostentatious military parade in Beijing. We all saw the pictures, prompting President Trump to accuse the trio of conspiring against the U.S. Final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. By now, it is common knowledge that the president of China, Xi Jinping, is a brutal dictator, and his country is responsible for a number of human rights violations, including, but by no means limited to, organ harvesting, forced labor, torture, physical abuse, mass surveillance, family separation, repression of cultural and religious expression, and so much more. And then there's the other guy, North Korea, one of the most repressive countries in the entire world. Kim Jong-un maintains fearful obedience through arbitrary punishments, torture, executions, unjust imprisonment, forced labor, and a bunch more. Basic freedoms, including expression, assembly, and access to information, severely restricted. Now that Xi Jinping has no issue keeping cozy with Kim Jong-un, perfectly understandable, and they're both cut from the same cloth, oppressive dictators who rule with an iron fist. Now, to make things worse, China fully supports North Korea, who is supporting Russia's war against Ukraine, and that makes both countries in large part complicit in an ongoing war crime. It's a tragic relationship between a couple of evil individuals who just happen to be next-door neighbors and who need each other for trade and more. Your thoughts and comments always welcome, and we're at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. And again, Davey, back to the email bag. This is a hot topic, and I imagine a lot of people are really thinking about this long and hard. And what are folks saying?
Yeah, Bill, our listeners have been absolutely weighing in over the last few days on this topic and a related topic to it. So let's hit the mailbag and take a look.
Okay.
Nancy in Tallahassee, Florida, writing in.
Okay, go ahead, Nancy.
She says, what's so surprising about two petty dictators smiling and slapping each other on the back? We've seen it a million times before, and who cares?
Yeah, well, I care. I think the U.S. cares. I think all of us here in the States, we care because it's not just China and North Korea. Now it's China, North Korea, Russia, Iran, India. There's this new global alliance forming. We used to be the biggest kid on the block, and we're still, I think, the biggest kid on the block. But you get all those rogue nations together, nuclear nations. It's time for everyone to be on very high alert. This began with the Biden administration. Joe Biden was saying it long before I'm thinking it. We are this close to World War III. We're closer than we've ever been. World War III, a lot of nuclear-armed nations, and we should all care. We should all care a great deal and be watching things very, very carefully. Appreciate you checking in. David, who's up next?
Okay, Bill, we've got a return listener writing in. It's Joe from Staten Island, New York.
Joe, welcome back to the program. What are you thinking?
Joe says the message is clear. The leaders of China and North Korea are commies, and there are mortal enemies. Wake up.
Yeah, it's more than they're commies. They're commies. They're dictators. They're heading up communist nations. The repression, the torture, the crimes against humanity. I hate to sound too overly dramatic, but we all know what's happening in China about organ harvesting and all the rest. We know all too well what's happening in North Korea as well. Listen, we should all be on extreme high alert. We should do all we can to bring that to an end. We can't stop that relationship. China needs North Korea. North Korea needs China. They both think alike. They're in cahoots. But that new world order, which we've been talking about in recent days, North Korea, China, Iran, Russia, and more. It's a very frightening thought. And look, it's a tough region. North Korea, they're a nuclear force. They've made an abundant number of threats against far too many people. China may move on Taiwan as well, and both China and North Korea are backing Russia. A perfect storm is percolating right now. This can't be good. Keep watching, keep listening, and stay dialed in. All right, we'll switch things up entirely now and look at some lawmakers in Washington who are making a bold move to help President Trump uphold a major promise he made to the American people. Right now, Republicans in the U.S. Congress currently in the process of voting to expand mining and drilling rights on public lands in a number of western states, thus paving the way for the president to back up his pledge to expand our nation's energy output. And drill, baby, drill. You'll remember that campaign promise. Republican members of the House of Representatives have just voted to repeal a whole bunch of highly restrictive land management plans in Alaska, also Montana, and North Dakota, all of which were passed in the waning days of former President Joe Biden's administration. Those prior development restrictions were all imposed by Team Biden in part to limit potentially harmful fossil fuel emissions. However, the Republican plan is now to reopen those public lands for different types of development, thus creating both jobs and, cash revenue. Absolutely. In the meantime, the measure now heads over to the Republican-controlled Senate, where it's eventually expected to pass as well. We're making progress. Earlier this summer, the Trump administration announcing their intention to overturn a number of Biden's land use regulations, and ordinarily, this process, could take years. However, the seldom used congressional repeal, which was ultimately approved, it allows the government to move much more rapidly and sell off a whole bunch of drilling and mining rights almost immediately, and many of them involving millions of tons of coal. Don't you even think about complaining about coal. Of course, congressional Democrats, they're overwhelmingly against repealing any of the prior Biden administration land regulations. They claim that while everything in our nation is getting more expensive, Republicans are only interested in drilling for more coal. Shortly after taking office in January, President Trump declared a national energy emergency, seeking to speed up the approval process for oil, gas, and coal projects. And final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. You know, it's a complicated world, and the one thing which will keep the USA on solid footing is clearly energy independence. Think about it. Putting a stop to Biden-era regulations. The Trump administration has a real shot at opening up drilling in a number of western states, therefore making our nation far less dependent on imported energy while ensuring national safety and, in theory, lowering the cost of energy for each and every one of us. You want to save money, don't you? You know, creating new and well-paying jobs in the energy sector is simply icing on the cake, and this whole thing sounds like a win-win for American business and for the entire country. Oil, natural gas, coal, all of it. We have an abundance of it. We have the technology to extract it. And as President Trump has said, we are in the middle of a national energy emergency. You know, the bottom line, a country reliant on other countries for its energy needs is a country which is left highly vulnerable, both economically and, more importantly, militarily. Your thoughts and comments on the big energy crunch, bring them on. And we're at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. Davey, what do you got for us? Let's go to the email bag and see what folks are thinking.
Okay, Bill, we start with Ezekiel writing to us from Natchez, Mississippi.
Hello, Ezekiel. What are you thinking? What's on your mind?
Zeke says, finally, someone's doing something about that wacko Biden's ridiculous land use regulations. And of course, it's the Republicans. Bravo.
Absolutely. We don't need more regulations. If we keep relying on everyone else for our energy needs, we're going to get hamstrung at one point someday. Drill while you can. The technology is there. The resources are there. Let's become energy independent once again. We've done it before, and we've got to do it right now. Davey, who's up next?
Okay, Bill, we got one here from Warren, who's writing to us from San Rafael, California.
I know San Rafael all too well. And Warren, what's on your mind?
Warren says, interesting. China has built a solar farm that's the size of Chicago to power up their AI programs, while we look backwards and shovel for coal. Who would you bet on?
I'd bet on the U.S. I'd bet on the Trump administration. I'd bet on technology to extract all the things we need to be energy independent moving forward. I know a lot of folks are going to complain about coal, Davey. I know we've since had some emails come through earlier today. Look, the bottom line is some clean coal technologies, they purify the coal before it burns. And I've read a story or two about it. One type of coal preparation in particular, coal washing, removes unwanted minerals by mixing crushed coal with a liquid and allowing the impurities to separate and settle. It's not a 19th century kind of coal. You're not going to see the big, huge plumes of black smoke into the atmosphere. Also, let's make sure our strategic petroleum reserves are fully stocked. And if we have too much, think about this. We could sell energy to our allies, pump some additional dough into our federal government, and start fixing the budget deficit. And then we can start working on the national debt. Or we can do what China did, build a solar farm. What are you thinking, man? We've got resources. Put them to work. Now, a couple of additional headlines we are keeping a very close watch on. President Trump now suggesting that New Orleans could be the next crime-plagued American city where National Guard troops will be deployed to protect the public. Well, will be or could be. For now, I think it's could be. The president also asking the U.S. Supreme Court to determine whether or not federal law gives him the right to impose all of the sweeping tariffs on imports, which were recently put on hold by a lower court. And officials now saying that hackers linked to the Chinese government have stolen massive amounts of information from virtually each and every one of us, every American, with experts adding that the magnitude of the operation proves China's cyber capabilities now rival those of the U.S. and those of our allies. Also, tonight, President Trump hosting a lavish dinner party at the White House. The guest list including a number of prominent tech CEOs such as Microsoft's Bill Gates, Apple's Tim Cook, and Meta's Mark Zuckerberg. Haven't had the confirmation yet, but I've heard that engineer Jamie has been invited to the White House. We're just waiting on the confirmation. Nothing confirmed yet. And unfortunately, one notable absence will be the world's richest man, Elon Musk, whose invitation must have gotten lost in the mail. Davey, I think mine got lost in the mail as well. I will change things up now just a bit and take a peek at some hot topics which are making headlines right now in the world of business. We talk about these things because it's just good, well, business. In a rare show of public unity, both Republicans and Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives now banding together in support of a bill that would make it illegal for members of Congress and their families to trade and own individual stocks. The Social Security Administration making an enormous change which impacts hundreds of thousands of Americans as they eliminate all paper checks and begin issuing every payment electronically. I guess that means you can't walk down to the post box once a month and check on that check. It's just going to automatically be there. The adjustment will take place at the end of this month. And a new report shows that American borrowers would save nearly $100 billion every year if President Trump is ever able to implement his proposed 10% cap on all credit card interest rates. And Dave, you think about that, you lower those interest rates on the credit cards, that means more people will be spending more money and pumping more money into the economy. It's just good business. And now it is time for the lighter side of news, where we take a close-up and personal look at a few intriguing stories guaranteed to pique your curiosity. And we kick things off today with the deal of a lifetime and a chance for budding homeowners to get in on the ground floor, literally for less than the price of a taco. You don't say. Looking to revitalize a bunch of rundown neighborhoods, authorities in Louisville, Kentucky are now offering up a whole bunch of vacant homes for sale, and they're putting them all on the market for only $1 a piece. Did I say that right, Davey? Is it $1 or $1,000?
Oh, it's $1, Bill. One greenback.
$1 a holler, $1 for each house. Needless to say, the properties, they're old and desperately in need of repair. Well, so am I, but I'm worth more than $1. And any potential buyer also has to prove they have the additional funds to fix up their new crib before they're ever allowed to close the deal. That sounds reasonable to me. Unfortunately, by the time you fork out your hard-earned dough for all those extra expenses, you got to remodel the bathroom, you got to fix the roof and paint the house and all the rest. Actual cost of the crib could eventually top over $100,000. In the meantime, local officials calling the cutting-edge program Land Bank-A-Rama. They say their ultimate goal is to provide affordable housing to people who actually want to live in that community. And again, that's Louisville, Kentucky. So if you're interested, another note to share, the average rate on a 30-year mortgage now it just dropped to 6.5%, the lowest level in nearly a year. Good news and more good news. You know, it's a beautiful world when you can buy a house, even a fixer-upper, for less than the price of a bottle of pop, or as Davey says, less than the price of a taco. Now, some questions, though, and right off the bat, I want to know if the asking price is negotiable. You know, sometimes, Davey, a house is listed for a very specific price, but if you have a good real estate agent or a good broker, you haggle a little bit, and there might be some wiggle room on that asking price. They're asking $1, but I think I can get them down just a little bit. Also, if anybody knows anything about math and junk like that, I want to know what my monthly payments would be. And Dave, you have an abacus. I don't need an answer right now, but try working on this. What would my monthly payments be on a $1 mortgage with a 30-year loan at 6.5%? Just kind of curious. You know, I'm mildly intrigued, and I'm all for anything that I can buy for only $1. And while we're on the subject of $1 deals, we'll scamper along now to a popular dollar store chain, which has quietly been raising their prices, and all to attract wealthier customers. And apparently, their plan is working. The top executive at Dollar Tree says that his low-cost chain has spent the last couple of years adding scores of items which cost up to $7 a pop, and that wide range of more expensive products actually bringing in a whole bunch of customers who they say make more than $100,000 a year. Goes on to say that his company's wealthier shoppers are drawn to his stores by what he calls the thrill of the hunt, and that the secret to Dollar Tree's success, it's knowing that customers always wind up buying more than they thought they would when they first walked in. Hey, in the meantime, not to worry, he points out that the chain still has tons of items available at the standard $1.25 price for their traditional lower-income shoppers. Well, Davey, if the dollar store is selling things for $3, $5, $7, or even $1.25, maybe they should change the name of the place to the More Than a Dollar Store. And another thing, did you ever shop, Davey? They don't have them anymore, but did you ever shop at the old 99-cent only stores?
Oh, I love those 99-cent only stores. They were great.
Yeah, they were. I know the chain shut down several months back, but I used to go to the 99-cent store all the time. I would look at my receipts, and every item was actually 99.9 cents. They were charging an extra penny on every item. Now, I don't mean to complain, but come on, man, I'm not rich. And Davey, an extra penny on every item and selling hundreds of thousands of items across the country every day. I'm surprised those guys aren't billionaires. Something went wrong, and they went out of business. In any event, I'm not rich. But, Davey, I am hungry, so one more for the road, and what do you got before we bust out?
All right, Bill. We have to have a fast food story on our show,
Sure.
so
Yeah.
I think let's go and close with that one. It's also got a country music star, so what more could you ask for?
I love some country music, absolutely. All right, finally today, the Queen of Country. Is this about Reba McEntire, maybe Leanne Rimes?
Keep guessing, Bill.
Taylor Swift?
Nope.
All right, finally today, the Queen of Country, whoever that is, I guess we'll find out. Proven once again, she's just like you and me, and it turns out she's a humongous fan of greasy, sloppy, high-cal, fast food grub. The legendary, there it is, Dolly Parton. I got it all wrong. It's Dolly Parton, now admitting she's a longtime superfan of none other than Taco Bell, and that she always orders the same exact items every time she drives through. In particular, she's fond of their popular soft-shell taco supreme stuffed with gooey sour cream. Dolly also says she's a big fan of the chain's Mexican pizza, which is made up of a pair of crispy tortilla shells crammed full of ground beef, refried beans because they fried them wrong the first time, and then topped with cheese, tomatoes, and a spicy, tangy sauce. Says she likes the item so much she even once appeared in a musical on TikTok to advertise the return to the menu. Are you saying the Mexican pizza was on the menu and off, but they brought it back? Is that right?
I think that's the case, Bill, actually. Thanks to Dolly, they brought it back.
Well, why would you pull that off the menu? It's the best thing they got. Do you remember the Bell Beefer, by the way, that Taco Bell had many years ago?
I don't think I ever had one of those, Bill.
Yeah, the Bell Beefer, kind of like a hamburger, but it's just ground beef on a hamburger bun instead of in a taco shell. They also made an enchilado years ago at Taco Bell. Remember the enchilado?
I don't think I had one of those either, Bill, but everything on the menu is delicious, so I'd be willing to try it again and again.
It's Taco Bell. That's some of the best grub on the planet. By the way, the country music legend Dolly Parton goes on to say that when it comes to the world-famous Taco Bell hot sauce, she always sticks to the chain's mild variety. You don't want to overdo it. Hey, for a number of years, I've been thinking about taking a bride, Davey, but up until right now, up to this very moment in time, I was having trouble finding the right Mrs. Now, the future Mrs. Roundup Thomas, here she is, Dolly Parton. Finally a woman after my own heart. She digs Taco Bell. She makes great music. She loves making a run for the border. She thinks outside the bun. We're both fans of the Mexican pizza. And if you didn't know this, Davey, Dolly Parton owns her own theme park. You remember that?
Dolly World or something like that?
I think it's called Dollywood, absolutely. And she sings a pretty good ballad. What was the big hit record she had? I can see she had a duet partner, a big hit in 1983. Which one was that?
Are you talking about Islands in the Stream, Bill?
That's
Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, Dolly Parton and the silver-bearded fella, Kenny Rogers, one of the biggest hits of 1983, one of the biggest hits of the 1980s. I hereby, therefore, have decided, Davey, to marry Dolly Parton. You, producer Davey, and engineer Jamie are invited to the wedding, and please let everyone know that I am registered at the dollar store. And don't do it on the cheap, Davey. Don't get me one of the $1.25 items. Something from the $3 or the $5 or the $7 aisle. Break down, Davey. A guy only gets married once, right?
Okay, Bill. If you ever get married to Dolly Parton, I'll buy you a $7 item.
Thank you very much. That's a brief look at the lighter side of news, and chime in with your thoughts or comments on my pending marriage to Dolly Parton. Dollar stores, where everything costs more than $1, or 30-year mortgages on $1 houses. You'll catch us at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. So many interesting topics, Davey, and who's up first?
Okay, Bill, here's Nick in Westchester County, New York.
Hello, Nick. What are you thinking? What's on your mind?
He says that dollar house gag is a scam. By the time you're done paying to fix the place up, you'd be better off buying a real house you can live in, and it's likely to be in a better neighborhood, too.
Yeah, a lot of folks are short on dough, but they're real smart. They're good with their hands. They can fix anything. I know a lot of guys like that. They haven't got a lot of money, but if you can walk in there and buy a crib for $1, buy your own supplies, do your own work, or have some friends come around and help you out a little bit, that might be a solution for you. I wouldn't dismiss that so rapidly. I've seen some of the houses. They do look kind of dilapidated. I've seen the link to the homes, but if you can do some hammering and some nailing, maybe some painting, some electrical, some plumbing, I think this is a way to get into home ownership. A house for $1. It's a beautiful day. And Davey, who's up next?
Yeah, I think that guy's wrong too, Bill. I think
Absolutely.
You can score a good deal there, and if you're willing to work hard, you got yourself a nice home, and it pays off in the end.
Absolutely.
Here's one from Frank in Boston, Massachusetts.
Bring it on, Frank. What are you thinking?
And Frank says, I'm supposed to go to Taco Bell now just 'cause Dolly Parton says so? Thanks, but I don't think so, sir. She admits she's on their payroll, so what do you expect her to say?
Well, Jason Alexander many years ago did a commercial for the McDLT at McDonald's. I wouldn't go to McDLT until I saw Jason Alexander saying how fabulous the place was. And Davey, you're a big fan of the Golden Arches, right? I don't think you would have ever gone to McDonald's until you saw Jason Alexander singing and dancing in that commercial and pumping up that McDLT. Same thing here. If it's good enough for Dolly Parton, it's good enough for me. And Davey, I say you and I, when we get off the air today, we both make a run for the border, wolf down a handful of them Mexican pizzas, a couple of soft tacos, and say, thank you, Dolly Parton, for saving the day. Are you with me?
Yeah, Bill, that's a good idea.
Give me a hallelujah. You've been very stingy lately with the hallelujahs. Bring me a hallelujah.
I'll say hallelujah, Bill, and that's some good eating, as you like to say.
Very well done. One more, and then we hit the road. Who's up next?
Okay, here's one from Deb in Arlington, Virginia.
Now, tell us all about it, Deb. What are you thinking?
And Deb says, I agree with Dolly. Taco Bell is the best grub at the end of a long night, and especially their fantastic chalupas. The only thing missing from her list is a drink to go with it, and I recommend Pepto-Bismol.
Well, they got plenty of good drinks. They've got a very lovely drink bar. I think Taco Bell is actually in cahoots with Pepsi. David, doesn't Pepsi own Taco Bell?
Yeah, I think at one point they did. I don't know if they're still there, but they're probably under the same
Either way,
aegis.
Yeah, either way, Pepsi, Mountain Dew, whatever soft drinks they're serving. Yeah, a big bucket of soda, a couple of Mexican pizzas, a couple of combo burritos, and as you said, Davey, a chalupa or two. It's going to be a beautiful night. And now it is time for us to call it a wrap on the thrilling Thursday edition of the Big News Roundup. And before we go, as we do each and every day here on the program, we share with you a very notable quote and these insightful words. They come to us today from Ernest Hemingway, who said, "There's nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility lies in being superior to your former self." Very impactful indeed. Hemingway was a legendary Nobel Prize-winning American writer and journalist who understood style, influenced a generation of other authors. His well-known works include The Sun Also Rises, A Farewell to Arms, The Old Man and the Sea, and so much more. And by the way, earlier this week, his last remaining child, Patrick Hemingway, passed away at the ripe, tender age of 97. And now time for us to hit the road. But before we go, the enormous Powerball jackpot, now in the neighborhood of $1.7 billion. And the next drawing is scheduled for Saturday night. I think I'll buy 1.7 billion tickets, and that would assure me a win. Davey, am I thinking right?
I don't know if it's going to assure you a win, Bill, but I'm sure you'd have a good chance.
Pretty good odds, absolutely. Hey, now it's time for us to head on out of here. But before we call it a day, don't forget the News Roundup motto. Ask not what your podcasts can do for you. Ask what you can do for your podcast. And as we both know, there are a number of things you can do. For example, you can subscribe to our program so you never miss an episode. Follow us on your favorite social media platform and show us some love. Come on, man. Score us one of those highly sought-after 5-star reviews. Those are every bit as tasty as a Mexican pizza from Taco Bell. Better yet, you can head over to our hot rockin' flame-throwing YouTube channel and just look for News Roundup with Bill Thomas. I'm Bill Thomas. Give us a thumbs up. I think it's actually News Roundup with Bill, or do you say Thomas when you do the YouTube search, Davey?
I believe if you do the YouTube search, it's News Roundup with Bill Thomas.
Very good. News Roundup with Bill Thomas on YouTube. Give us a look, please. Give us a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to click on the bell that pops up. And that'll help you receive notifications so you never miss a single episode. By the way, the News Roundup, it's available on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart. Also on the website called Odyssey, Audacy. I saw that earlier today. And anywhere else you find your podcasts. We're pretty much everywhere. For now, it looks like our time, it's officially up. Have an awesome day today. Please stay safe. Let's all continue to watch out for one another. And now I ask my dear pal, Engineer Jamie, who's taking next week off. But before she leaves, I'll ask Jamie to please dim the lights. Let's very gently, very methodically fade to black. And we'll see you right back here tomorrow on a Friday afternoon.